Hello, welcome to today's video.
What's going on, guys? Hope you're doing well and staying warm on these cold winter days. Let's dig into the engine that's gonna go into 68 Mustang build. Here it is, a big blob of an engine. A little bit of background on how I've decided to swap this engine into the 68 Mustang before I really dig into what this is and all the cool facts about it. Right around the time I acquired the 68 Mustang, a buddy of mine was talking to me about these engines and how there's a YouTuber that's been messing with them. His name is Calvin. His YouTube channel is Neverlog57. I will put link to his YouTube channel. I started watching the videos on Calvin's YouTube channel, and I was just like, why hasn't anybody been talking more and more about these engines? I mean, there's only a few guys out there filming them and documenting them, and then, I mean, there is a community for these engines, but not a whole lot of support, but I think it's coming. Anyway, I ended up getting the 68 Mustang, and by then I was pretty much sold on these engines, and I was like, alright, I'm doing it. It's going to be a little bit difficult because of the support, but it just made sense for how unique it is and how good these engines actually are. So I wanted to build it because of the uniqueness of it, and because I do truly believe that this platform is going to grow in the coming years. So what this is a vortec 4200. Some people know it as the American Barra because it's similar to the Barra, but it was made here in the United States. A little bit of background on these engines. They came in Trailblazers, Envoys, and I think a few other options. This is part of the Atlas family from GM, so they came in 4 cylinders, 5 cylinders, and the biggest one, this behemoth of a 6-cylinder. They're tall and they're long, but with a few modifications you can make them fit into a decent sized engine bay. These came in, I think, 2002 to 2008 or 9. Trailblazers and Envoys, that's the most common vehicle that they came in. So this engine is very common. There are a lot of these out there. I don't think there is even enough people to do swaps on these to run out of engines. So that makes it very cool. Another thing about these engines is that there are different versions of them. There is the ones that came from 2002 to 2005, and then they did a revision on them from 2006, 2007, and then 2008. What I have here is the 2002 to 2005. These are known to have a little bit better crank in them to handle power, but the heads don't flow as well. The later versions, some say the cranks are a little bit weaker, but the heads flow much better, and especially like for NA setups. For boost, you can kind of make it up, but the exhaust ports actually flow a little bit better on the later years. So the best combinations of these engines is to go with a 2002 to 2005 bottom end, and then put a 2006 and above year head. So what makes this engine cool? So from its name, it's a vortec 4200, so it's a 4.2 liter inline 6-cylinder, so it is huge in displacement for a 6-cylinder. I don't know off the top of my head, but this might be one of, if not the highest displacement 6-cylinders, especially for a straight 6. In comparison to like a JZ, which is a 3 liter, even a stroker, it's like a 3.2 or 3.4. And then Barra's, which is what this engine gets compared to the most, is a 4 liter. And this is a 4.2, not even stroked out or anything. No. These make about 300-ish, 290, 300, somewhere in that range in stock form. I think the later years go a little bit better, so they make a little bit more power. If you go to Coblin's channel, you can see that he has pushed these well into the 600, 700, and 800 horsepower, and he's working on going into the thousands with these. In stock form, he's pushed them into the 600 safely. That's without doing rods, pistons, or anything like that. And he's now got one with rods and pistons in it, and he's going for the 1,000 horsepower mark. So definitely give his channel a follow. Check out videos, because I can try and describe this as much as I can. He's got so many videos, and there's also a Wikipedia that he created. I'll also put that in the description. There's literally anything that he's learned, he's put on there, which is amazing. And that's what's gonna make this platform really grow. He's got so much documented on these engines. Anything you can think of so far, he's documented it. It's out there. And it's been extremely helpful for me to acquire parts and learn about these engines. But they're really good platforms. There is rumors that GM was creating this engine to do, sports or performance version of those vehicles. So some say that a lot of the features on these engines are somewhat performance based, and the fact that you're able to push 600 horsepower without even opening this thing just kind of shows that. But we're gonna dig more into it and look at some of the things that are performance oriented and you'll only see on borderline racing engines. The biggest attractive things about these engines, they are widely available if you live in the US. If you're overseas, that's a different story. You can get them imported, but in the US and Canada, these are extremely available. Like, you can go to a junkyard and get one of these. I actually acquired this from somebody that got it pulled out of a junkyard. It's a full out. There's everything on it. I probably won't use a lot of the accessories, but I wanted to have all the weird little brackets. And I don't want to have to sit there and look for them and spend a lot of money trying to piece all the little things. So I got the whole package. I will use what I need from it and then get rid of the rest. Number two, these engines are cheap. You can get a whole car with this engine in it for probably $500 if you look hard enough. There's people out there selling them for $100. There's people out there that are just like, come take the car, come take the engine. They're just in a lot of cars, so price-wise, they're way cheaper than Jay-Z's and way cheaper than Barra. You're gonna be able to get parts for them at the local auto parts store. That's a really, really cool part. Like, if an alternator goes out or you need a seal or something like that, you just run to the auto store. They'll have it because it's one of the most common engines in these American vehicles. I've acquired this engine for about $450 because I wanted everything with it. I might be able to sell some stuff for really cheap, like the intake manifold, exhaust manifold, small stuff here and there, for $20 here, $30 there, and maybe gain back $100, $200. So I'll be all in about $250, which is hilarious because when you guys see some of the parts that I'm going to put on this engine, I give you an example. The starter and the starter adapter that I'm going to be using actually cost more than what I paid for the whole engine. Anyway, we'll talk more about it as I go. It's going to be very cool. My goals with this specific engine is to make about 500-600 on E85, and then we'll see what fails if it does fail. And then I plan on building a couple other ones with built bottom end, better head, and yeah, I'm probably going to be swapping this engine into a lot of things going forward, because I really believe in this platform. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to dig into this thing. I'm going to tear it apart, get as many things off of it as possible, and then we're going to get out the engine stand, take the valve covers off, the oil pan off. We're going to do a quick health check on it. I'll probably do a compression test, so I'll leave the starter on. We'll do a compression test on the engine stand, and we'll probably do a leak down test. So if those go well, I will not touch this engine. I will not even open it, because I think it'll be pretty cool to show what it can do without even doing a head gasket or studs on it, as far as like boost. So yeah, as long as it passes the health check, we won't be touching it. We'll just swap it in, put all the bolt-on parts, and see what it does on the 85. If I see some things that are concerning, or it doesn't pass the leak down in the compression test, I might do maybe rods, pistons, I don't know. So I don't want to get too carried away yet. My plan is to just run this engine, but if I see something that's super obvious, we will have to address that. The next day, I had a hard time with the transfer case, because these engines are off of an all-wheel drive car, most of them, and they have this weird transfer case that goes through the oil pan, and it's on the other side. It's kind of like pressed in. Had a hard time getting it off, so it took me a while. So I ended up just calling it a day after that. But I've got this thing stripped down pretty much to the bare bones. I left some of the things that I don't really know what they do, so I don't mess anything up until I do some research on. But I'm going to show you guys some of the cool features on these engines before we dig into a quick health check on this thing. I already saw something that I don't really like, but if the rest of the engine checks out, we'll be able to fix that issue. But one of the cool features on these is that they are all aluminum, the block and the head, so they are significantly lighter than a JZ or a Barra or any straight six that's iron block. You can see the front, it's all just modular, it's all plated, so if you want to do water pump, oil pump, all that, you just got to take the covers off. This is the engine year with the smaller ports on the exhaust. So one other cool feature is, as you can see on the exhaust cam area, these engines have variable timing on the exhaust side, so it kind of has like VVTi or VVT. So that's cool. If we are able to manage that, we will be able to spool up the turbo a lot quicker. So this is pretty unfortunate. When I was tearing this thing apart and getting it loaded on here, just kind of by accident, I ended up moving the flywheel, or the flex plate for now, and I noticed that, I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's the thrust in the crank. So the thrust bearing on this thing is pretty shot. It's really unfortunate because the main bolts on the main bearings are torque to yield, and they break all the time. So when you take them off, a lot of times they break and they're a pain, but if the rest of the engine is in good condition, it'll be worth taking it apart and throwing new thrust bearing, new main bearings in it, and possibly we'll put rod bearings in it while we're in there. But I'm kind of afraid that this is going to end up spiraling into taking this thing apart and putting a head gasket in it and gapping the rings. So we'll see if we're able to just throw new main bearings in it and it helps. but we'll have to do a quick health check on it. If it passes, then I will be more motivated to fix this engine instead of just going and grabbing another. The stunts you're about to see are performed by a trained professional. Don't attempt this at home. So, I've got all the spark plugs pulled out of this thing. The valve cover gaskets around the plugs shot. There's a bunch of oil in there, whatever. But I've got the compression tester hooked up on cylinder 1, or no, this is backwards. This is cylinder 6. And I've got just a quick makeshift setup here. Don't try this. I stole the battery from the BMW, and if you're wondering, yes, that is a hose clamp holding on the positive. It's whatever, it works. Just don't try this at home. Say that I showed this. Anyway. The 180. Nice. Gotta do the rest. Ow. This one's got 200. This one's 230. Almost 200. It's possible that some of the middle ones are higher because oil seeped down into them. I'm gonna try 6 again, but from a junkyard motor, I mean, I'm not too worried about it. Being a little bit lower, usually you don't want to go too high of a percentage of difference. Yeah. Oh, cylinder 6 is definitely a lot more tired. I'm gonna let the battery rest a little bit and then try it again, but yeah, it's not even going up to 180. At least it's got compression though. We'll have to take a look, do a compression leak down test. All right, I've got the valve cover off. Everything looks fine so far, and it's just dirty. So got 150,000 miles probably on it, so just typical junkyard motor. A lot of gunk, but I can turn it over by hand, no problem. So I'm gonna watch these 2 lobes on cylinder 1. They're both up. That means the valves are up. I can see down in the top dead center. I'm just gonna want it right at top dead, not just with the valves closed, because it's gonna want to, when I put pressure down it, it's gonna want to turn the engine over. So you want to make sure, because I have all the plugs out, I might still try to turn over when I put 100 psi down the throat. Crankcase leakage. Alright, so intake valve is leaking a little. Not great, but I mean, you can't have high expectations for junkyard motor. So let's see what the rest do. Cylinder 2. I'm gonna do the rest of these and go from there. Real quick, I actually forgot to show this another unique feature to this engine. The injector holes are actually right in the head. So fabricating a intake for this makes it a little bit easier. And it's cool because it just shoots the fuel right into the cylinder. So right on top of the valves. So I've got the oil pan off. As you can see, another cool thing about these is they come factory with a girdle, and actually the whole bottom section of this block is kind of a girdle itself. It's hard to explain, but kind of like splits right about in the middle, and then the rest of it is this kind of girdle piece. But this is a lot of crank movement. I actually can't even see the thrust bearing, like the sides of it. You can usually tell which one is the thrust bearing, and saw something that's unfortunate. So we've got some metal in the pickup tube. All this is just chunks of metal. It's like that's the thrust bearing. So yeah, looks like the thrust bearing is all in here. You know, this junkyard motor, you can't have your hopes up. I would just not use this motor, but like anything else that I'm gonna get, it's either gonna be out of another used car. You know, the only way is to spend a lot of money and get one that's either really low mileage or that hasn't been like started, which is very rare to find. So I don't think it's going to be worth grabbing another motor and taking another chance. You know, I already have one that I know what's wrong with it. If I grab another one, maybe something more is wrong with it. You know, nobody's going to pull a motor out if it's fine. You know, a lot of times something happens with these cars, and in this case it's just the thrust bearing. I mean, we'll probably have lower compression on some of them, but it's going to be boosted, and we'll just use this motor as kind of a mock-up and first test with it. If it runs good, then it's fine. We'll keep running it until it dies, and I'll grab another one and we'll build that one with rods in it, pistons. We'll figure out everything about it. You know, fully built motor for where this goes out. So, you know, it's unfortunate. You never know what you're gonna get. But definitely looks like the bearing material. So yeah, it looks like whoever owned this. I mean, these were regular people cars, so whoever owned it probably didn't change oil for a while. That looks terrible in here, but I can get it soaked up and cleaned up. That's not a big deal. And throw some fresh bearings in it.